What's up, guys? Welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about something that I know has a lot of people in their Joneses. That's an expression saying that you hate it, you're mad, you're angry, you're in your feels, and it's all to do with Sabine being force sensitive. Now, this is something I didn't want to happen at all, but that's simply because I didn't think that Dave Filoni would go this deep into the Star Wars lore, well, really, the George Lucas lore, and explain everything that George has explained for decades, which is the fact that if you've watched any of my lore videos, then you're already caught up to date, and you'll enjoy this video maybe a little bit more, or it'll be easier for you to understand it. But for those who don't know, George has said that everyone has the Force in them. Everybody. Now, obviously there are differences, and we see it in the show when Ahsoka says that talent is a main factor, but also depending on how much you want to train, and how much discipline you have to learn the Force. Obi-Wan Kenobi, for example, and again, if you watched a lot of my lore videos over these last 7+ years, and you've probably heard me say this about Obi-Wan Kenobi, he was probably the weakest Force user in the entire Jedi Temple. He sucked, okay? Even Qui-Gon, he was so bad that, taken from Legends, and they took the story into canon with Master and Apprentice, and Qui-Gon even himself is recollecting, he's thinking of when he was young, when he was Obi-Wan's age, and it's written in the book, both Legends and canon, that he's looking at Obi-Wan, he's like, when I was his age, I was doing things 10 times more impressive than what he's struggling to do and struggling to grasp. And so this is something that I think a lot of people don't understand. They think, okay, well, Jedi are just extremely gifted beings, and this is simply not the case. A lot of them, yes, are gifted. Yoda, Mace Windu, Anakin, Luke, Leia. But when it comes to some other Jedi, like Obi-Wan, for example, that we know of, who really has a low Force affinity, an inability to use the Force as easily as Anakin Skywalker could, who just walked into the Jedi Temple at age 9 and was able to pass their test with flying colors, despite having the emotions and temperament of, a 5-year-old for the rest of his life. There are reasons for that, okay? Not getting sidetracked this time. Now, in this scenario, Sabine has the Force. Everyone has the Force. Watto has the Force. You could literally make Watto into a Jedi. He might be a really crap Jedi, really bad Jedi. He might spend his entire life training in the ways of the Jedi arts, but he won't be able to be a Jedi at the level of Anakin Skywalker. So, the only way that I think it's going to be acceptable for Sabine to now be a Force user, seeing as how this, I don't think breaks canon, but it simply opens up a new box of things we could play with and understand for a lot of people who haven't been on board with the George Lucas era of lore and behind-the-scenes kind of stuff. This is stuff he said for years. This is something that's been in Star Wars forever. And I believe if Ahsoka wants to train Sabine, that's all fine and dandy, but I think that there needs to be some sort of a cap to Sabine's abilities. She can't go ahead and train for maybe the whole season and then end up force pulling objects and throwing them and using her lightsaber to throw it and bring it back. That to me would be absolutely ridiculous. So first of all, the fact that she was trying to move the cup and it didn't move, great. Character progression. I think at the end, I'm just calling it. I don't follow leaks. I don't follow any of that crap. I think at the end of this show, everything is said and done, heroes are saved or something. Who knows? She's gonna try. There's probably gonna be a deleted scene where she or a scene at the end where she tries to move the cup, and we zoom in on the cup. She's struggling. We zoom in on the cup, and all of a sudden it starts to tremble a little bit, and then they just cut and fade out to the credits. That's what I think could happen. Now, Sabine could spend a whole year to train in the Force, and she would maybe be able to move the cup. I'm okay with that. I think that's fine. If you're being trained by the apprentice of the Chosen One, and you're after a year being able to move a cup, okay, cool. But if she's gonna go anything beyond that and do Force jumps and Force lightning or whatever, I'm gonna have a problem with that. I think that'll be a little bit ridiculous. And I'm gonna feel like maybe that was some Disney executive that came in there, or I'm gonna think, Dave is off his rocker, right? So that's definitely what I don't want to happen. But as for her being able to use the Force, everyone has the Force in them. It just depends on how many midichlorians you have, which allows them to control you and for you to control them and to control the Force. So there are a lot of variables at play, but the fact that she's trying to learn the Force, that's no problem. That's anyone can pretty much be a wizard. You just might not be that great of a wizard. Anyone can be a Jedi. You just won't be the Chosen One. You won't be Anakin Skywalker. So for me, yeah, for sure. I don't want Sabine going in there, freaking twirling her saber, just throwing it and Force lightning and being basically Shin Hati. I think that would be absolutely ridiculous. But I think if she's going to go in there and maybe have some Force sensitivity in the sense where she can have you know, some perception of movements and attacks, or maybe she's able to, oh man, I don't know, something super weak. She's got to be really, really, really nerfed. Like, I'm talking, think of like a youngling and then nerf the youngling. I think then that would be acceptable. I can kind of see where Dave is going with this whole thing and trying to maybe make like the next Mandalorian Jedi, Mandalorian Force user. I get that. I don't think Sabine is the one to do that. While I fully understand and agree that, you know, whatever George says goes, and this is not a new thing that is coming in there from Disney, this is an old thing that has been said by George Lucas. And Dave Filoni is just building upon the lore that George created. But the next few episodes are going to be very crucial, I feel like, because if Sabine starts doing some crazy crap with the Force, I think we're all going to have a big problem with that. But if she starts to be able to maybe like sense something in the Force, or maybe like a tremor, like she just makes very small advancements, all right, cool. That's okay. That's acceptable. We got to be really slow with this whole movement and transition of her using the Force. It kind of really comes down to her midichlorians at the end of the day, in which we don't really know what they are. They could be high, they could be low. Personally, I feel like she has way too much anger, which makes her very unbalanced and doesn't let her be calm like a Jedi to be able to see into the Force and control it and work with it, move with it, rather than just constantly being uptight and angry and like, oh, it's not working, oh, this and that. So she needs to calm down a little bit. She's a little too antsy. And once she does that, I feel like maybe we'll be able to see a different side of Sabine that we haven't seen before once she meditates a little bit. Who knows what could happen. But it really, for me, it really comes down to how she uses the Force. Is she going to be, you know, OP, crazy Rey? Even Rey was the granddaughter of Palpatine. Bogus story that was, and made it the last minute. But that at least makes sense if you do have a granddaughter of Palpatine, that they would be able to do these kinds of abilities and perform these kinds of abilities. But with Sabine, like, I don't think so. Unless she's like, I don't know, Tor Vizsla's descendant or something like that. But I don't think that's the case. So that's really my thoughts on the whole Sabine being Force sensitive thing. I don't want it to happen in the sense where she's like crazy powerful. But if she's spending, you know, like the next year to be able to move a cup, I don't think that's really an issue. I think that just really falls in line with what George Lucas has said a million times, that everyone has the Force isn't everyone has midichlorians to some extent. It just depends on, you know, talent, and if you're really disciplined to be able to... Look, Obi-Wan Kenobi, the reason he was so powerful in the Force and powerful in his Form 3 lightsaber fighting style, Sarisu, and Mace Windu even called him the master of Sarisu, wasn't because he was really talented. He really wasn't talented. I'd say his only talent was patience and his dedication and discipline. That was his talent, and that's what made him excel in the Jedi arts. Otherwise, you know, he really wasn't that gifted at all or powerful, which we can kind of see is why he gets like beat pretty much most often, and why his fighting style of defense of Sarisu kind of embodies him as a person, is that like he is not the aggressor, he is more so the negotiator. You know, he moves within the confines of what can be done and tries to make the best of those situations. He defends and looks for an opening until he's just relentless, until the person makes a mistake or gets foolhardy or whatever, and boom, chops off their legs and their arm, leaves them to burn in the lava. That's pretty much how it works. So yeah, look, to recap, Sabine, she can use the Force, but it's got to be like the most pathetic display of the Force that, you know, would even make a youngling laugh. So that's my thoughts on it. But this is something George has done for a long time. So thanks guys for watching my vid. Let me know what you think about Sabine being able to use the Force or training to use the Force. I think Ahsoka's explanation was really well put, and it really just extrapolates on George's lore and explanations. Later guys, have a great day.